Do you not see aspects of that in some of the critical race theory praxis, at least, that's going on? There is a sense that we can use a formula to make the society just, the sort of in a way that seems to omit a million different other factors, a million different other components that affect these relations. I mean, you wrote.
Sure. I mean, anytime you get to the practitioners of a set of stories and narratives, you're going to get too often a reductionist move that has to do with the kind of elitist imposition of a certain program that's going to change people's consciousness and lo and behold, lead towards some kind of magnificent breakthrough. So that when we talk about critical race theory, well, it's lens. We got a variety of different lenses of looking at human history and American history. You look at American history through the lens of the being and sufferings of Africans who were enslaved in Jim Crow, you're going to get some very important insights. You're not going to get the whole history. You're going to get some partial truths. You can look at the lens of American history through the working class, lens through the elites. All of them play a role. And in the end,
or religious freedom as one of the elements of the country that is integral to its story.
Yeah. For indigenous people, I mean, all of these are required. And you remember that famous line that I always come back to with Henry James writing that letter to Robert Louis Stevenson: no theory is kind to us that cheats us of seeing. No theory is kind to us that cheats us of seeing. And so every theory is going to have its blind spots. Every lens is going to have its splinter in the eye. But the question is, and this is where you have to be jazz-like. You understand this better because the Irish have a jazz sensibility at their best. Joyce and the others enact this, that you have to be agile and flexible and fluid and protean in your ability to look through a variety of different lenses in order to see the insights and the truths. And we say truths with an S because it has to be pluralized. Anytime you historicize, you contextualize, you pluralize. And so the 1619 Project is going to have splinter in their eyes. There's no doubt about that. They're going to miss some things. Eric Foner is the finest living American historian alive. I mean, living American that we have, right? And he says 1619 Project, very important. One particular way into understanding American history and so forth is practitioners can become very much tied to the mechanical and the formulaic. That's the last thing you want to keep it dramatic all the way down.
If I were to describe my fundamental objection is what I would call the epistemic hubris of it, in as much as, yes, there is no question in my mind, obviously, that white supremacy is integral to the history of the United States. And there's also no question to me that we have not fully exercised that or examined it enough. We've covered it with too much euphemism, metaphor, all the rest of it. It was horrifying, and its impact is great. But it is one truth. It is not the only truth. It does not define the United States and the project we're engaged in. It is part of it. And my concern is simply its reductionism and the fact that everything then becomes this white supremacy versus everybody else, and that this is actually the emphasis that 1619 was the true founding. The way that it kept making that claim, then slightly withdrawing it, then making it again, and slightly withdrawing it. But it's part of the story. It's an integral part of it, absolutely. But it is not the only explanation for American society, and it misses a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, no, but you're right about that. But keep in mind, my dear brother, that there's a sense in which it's a response to a dominant myth of origin that also made an essentialist claim. The Mayflower was about this one founding that served as the basis of the whole society. Well, no, that Mother Malcolm said, we didn't land on Mayflower, the rock landed on us. So if the dominant myth is going to say it's one thing, then the response, they say one thing. But we know it's never one thing.
It's right, but I don't think many people today are claiming Mayflower's theMayflower.
Well, I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, okay.
What you were talking about in terms of denying the impact of white supremacist institutions and practices, you see. But for me, the other danger, and this takes me back to my own Christian sensibility, is we've got to fight the notion that whiteness is reducible to white supremacy.